Hey guys, how's your week going? It's VaulSC here. So as you know, last week I posted a YouTube video asking you guys in the community to email me telling me which factions in Infinity you thought were powerful versus which ones were not powerful, and to list them and to rank them. And we took all of the Infinity factions, all 36, and listed them top to bottom. And you guys have been emailing me, and thank you very, very much for that. I've been putting the information into a spreadsheet, and in this video we're going to be talking about it and getting down to the results. So 26 people were surveyed altogether, not including me. I had my own results separate. 26 may not sound like a very big data set, although I do have to say that after I'd put in about 10-15 people's worth of results into the spreadsheet, the further results that kept on coming didn't change the results that much. Even within that set of 26 people, we start to see a bunch of trends, which I'm going to talk about in this video, and some interesting insights. But again, there weren't that many people, and I think that there are a few reasons why. First of all, a lot of people came back and said to me, hey, I do actually want to send you, what I think, but I can really only pick the top three, the bottom three. There's so many factions I just don't know about, and that's true. Quite a lot of people who play Infinity are familiar with, some factions that their friends play and that they play, but there are quite a lot of little sectorials out there that you may never even seen on the table before. I've been playing pretty regularly for 4 years, and I'm still, I've seen like 2 games with Bakunin in them. I played my first game with TAC the other night. So that was the first time I'd even seen them on there. Spiral Corps, I haven't even seen on the table yet. And there are a lot of people out there who just really are so unfamiliar that they don't want to sort of rank all 26, and I can understand that. So there was that. There were a few people who said to me, look, it'd be better to use an online web service to get everybody the poll results, and fair enough, we might do that next time. I agree that that would be an efficient way of doing it, but I kind of enjoyed the process of physically going through and doing the data entry and actually just reading what people sent in and taking my time with it. So for me, it was really enjoyable, so I hope you can understand that I really kind of wanted to do it that way, which is fair enough. As to the rankings that we're going to be talking about next in this video, I do want to let you know that there is, a fair amount of bias in there. Not so much that I think that the results are, compromised, but I think everybody should know that, first of all, these rankings and scores are being sent in by people who watch me on my YouTube video and follow me. So a lot of people are kind of influenced, I guess, by what I show and what I've been saying in my faction reviews and breakdowns and what I do in my bat reps. If you've seen me crushing face with Combined Army or Aleph or whatever it might be for a while, you may be inclined to think that those factions are powerful. Or if I've gone on record saying that XYZ faction are terrible, that may have influenced people. Whereas if you went across the other side of the world and found 50 to 100 people who had never even heard of me before and polled them, I think would get a different set of results. But importantly, I don't think that would be too different. There's still a lot of objective stuff out there in the game where people generally agree, whether they agree with me or their friends or not or whatever. Generally, there are some things which people can agree on, which I believe are reflected in what we get from surveys. So I think that's also important. You might remember that in my last video I copy-pasted a list of the factions in the order that they appear in Army 6 so that you guys could copy-paste them and then cut them around so that you re-rank them. I think that has biased the results a little bit in the mid-range of the results, because there are a few people there who have gone and picked their top 5 and bottom 5 and then sort of just finished up, and you can sort of see that a lot of the middle factions are still in the same order that they started with when you copy-pasted them. So I just want you guys to come in with that knowledge. But look, this is for fun. This is to glean a few little insights. It's not really for us to say, okay, this is definitely going to show everybody what the absolute best and bottom factions are in order for Corvus Belli to make some balance changes. That's not what this is about. This is really for interest's sake. Okay, join me now. Why don't you click on the link in the video description to this video, where I'll have you linked to my a spreadsheet, which I hopefully will have made public, where you can view but not edit, and we'll go into some results. So let me just bring down my cam, put it in the corner. So here they are, all 36 factions laid out on the left hand side, and on the blue column here or the green column here, we've got the total added scores, and I've basically just ranked them on this column from top to bottom. I've made two spreadsheets, so if you look down the bottom, there's one that says raw data, and then it's copy-pasted to another one which is called non-outliers, and the data is slightly different. Raw data is just the data entry of what you guys sent in and chucked into the spreadsheet, and we press go. Whereas non-outliers actually takes out the lowest pick that each faction got and the highest pick that each faction got. The reason why I've treated this separately is that you may get a situation where there's generally a consensus. Let's say 19 people all think that faction X is the best faction, and those same 19 people all also agree that faction Y is the second best faction, and then you have this 20th person that comes around and says, I actually think that faction Y is the best faction, not the second best faction. Which is not really a controversial choice, but then they say, oh, I think faction X, that all of you guys thought were the best faction, is actually the worst faction. And then when you average that out, when that bit of data is put in there, the result shows that, oh, there's a consensus that faction Y is actually the best faction because they've overtaken faction X. So we don't really want to look at that necessarily speaking. We want to be interested and focus on what the trends are and what the similarities are. So all these little squares where you see missing data, that's where I've basically found the weakest pick that somebody gave that faction and just removed it so that it's all fair. Like, you know, there are some factions here which generally everybody's given like a really high score or a really low score, and then there's one person who's either a real white knight who thinks that that faction's amazing and put them right at the top, or they've been a real detractor and they think that that awesome faction everybody else really loves is absolutely shocking. So that was a bit of a fun exercise. But interestingly enough, I found that when we switch between the two spreadsheets, it really only affects these middle factions here, and it hasn't really affected the other ones at the other end, just because it still works out pretty similarly, but the numbers get closer together. Note that if you take 26, in fact, let's get the calculator out. I don't do math very well in my head. If we take 26, which is the number of people who responded, and multiply that by the top score, 36, we get 936, which is the absolute highest score you can possibly get. So our top faction here, Varuna, 774, is scored out of 936, whereas 26 minus times 1 is 26. So Druze being the bottom faction here, as close as possible to 26, and there's all the numbers in between, which is just the combined result. I've got, you know, each cell in the B column basically summing up the row next to it, and that's how we get it. But let's talk about these results. Varuna coming in at number 1, Shazvasti, Tohar, Nomads, all pretty close together in terms of the score. And in fact, if we go to the non-outliers chart, we see even more sort of closeness there. Only 3 points separating Varuna and Shazvasti, only 2 points separating Shazvasti and Tohar. There's a bit of a gap after the top 3. Then when you come down to the bottom, Foreign Company, French Ariadna, people think aren't very good, but Druze firmly at the bottom. Like, there's some serious agreement here that that Druze are bad. If we look at the actual data here, after I've taken out the one outlier, which I believe was, and we can even see it here, let's have a look. So there's one person who thought that Druze was, 23, which means they're almost the 10th best faction, more like the 13th best faction. Most people are giving them 1s and 2s. But we'll talk about that more soon. So, let's come back to it. And again, it's really hard to, objectively say, oh, I think there's a reason why Varuna is better than Shazvasti. We don't know that. I mean, we can poll another 20, 30, 40 people, and these results might change. But what's interesting to us is that we're seeing a lot of agreement about this group of factions at the top, Varuna, Shazvasti, Tohar, that kind of thing, and we're seeing a lot of agreement about these bottom factions as well. With the ones in the middle, you'll see some factions where they are in the middle because a lot of people have given them an average number, like 14, 15. But there are also some factions which are in the middle because some people have rated them very highly and other people have rated them with a very low number. I found Pan-Oceania quite interesting because there was one person who thought they were the absolute #1 faction, somebody thought they were #2, the other person's given them a 32 there, but we also have people who think they're the 3rd worst faction, 6th worst faction, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I think it's because with Pan-Oceania being so big and so diverse in the way that you can play them, you can play like a tag list or a limited insertion list, Swiss guards, or you can play a massive spam list with lots of stuff with Joan of Arc. You can base your list around a Swiss guard or an Aquila guard, or you can have it around Joan. Pan-Oceania also being a very popular faction with lots of people playing them, played in various different ways. So the perception can change a lot. You know, you might see, you know, one group of people where there's one person within their meta who's very good with Pan-Oceania, or another meta where a couple of people who play them happen to be very bad with them. So that can kind of shape it a little bit. Let's proceed though. So why do people think that Varuna is right at the top there, based on this little set of 26 respondents? Actually, just before I answer that question, I'm going to bring up this little document here just to show you guys what my ranking was intuitively before I even started getting any emails from you guys. I wrote this down on the day that I filmed that last video last week. So you can see that I believe that Toha are #1. Even after the Symbiomates nerf, I think that their ability to win the most missions the most effectively is still top. They've got access to smoke and Eclipse grenades, obviously, and they've had a few more profiles thrown in from the new book. I still think that they're the one faction that I'd want to play if I wanted to maximize my ability to win ITS games. I've got Hakislam as #2 because I've had a lot of trouble with them, but also just because I find that with Tariq combined with the Gazimutewa, really good skirmishers, Al Jabal kind of impersonators, still got the linkable, the HMG and smoke, that kind of thing. You can cherry pick such a powerful ITS list with them. And then Shazvasti, obviously with Shishkin, Fatality level 2, extremely, extremely strong, and then it moves down from there. Whereas right at the bottom, I actually had Foreign Company as my bottom pick, just because I feel like Foreign Company, their availability of certain units is so low. The kind of lists you can make with them is ultimately very, very sort of watered down and doesn't really have any sort of strong synergistic things about it. Whereas Druze, you can at least cherry pick some pretty powerful guys, like Saito Dagan being a specialist. You've got the upgraded profile for Scarface, and their particular link team kind of makes a bit more sense defensively, whereas a lot of the Foreign Company link teams don't. You guys have got Druze as bottom, and I feel like maybe that's right. Maybe I shouldn't have had Druze down so low, but I want to quickly make the point that my estimation of the list isn't too different generally from what you guys are thinking. I've got Pano somewhere near the middle, so does the group. I've got, you know, in my top 5, these factions here, top 10, it's looking pretty similar to the spreadsheet. Same with the bottom 10. There aren't too many really sort of surprise picks. I think Tartary Armored Corps might be one of them though, and that's one I just don't have very much experience with. You guys, I think, have them up a bit higher. Yeah, number 14, whereas I've got them in the bottom half. But again, that may be a result of me sort of lacking understanding and knowledge and experience with that faction. Coming back to the results, so Varuna. What can we say about Varuna which makes people perceive them as being so strong? I think there are a lot of people out there who are a bit frustrated with that Kamau multi-sniper in a link team with MSV2, because no matter what you use to go up against it, it's always got the great odds of shooting back on 16 with 2 dice. That's very powerful. Then you've got all the Helots, which are going to be in Decoy or Marcus State. You've got a Jammer in that list, of course. You can make a relatively big list. The specialists are good. The only thing I find is a little bit weak about Varuna is their lack of attacking options, but you've still got a couple of those. So I think the perception there is very powerful, and they can still take a cutter. Shazvasti, it's no surprise to see them right up the top there, because Fatality level 2 in a link team with Shishkin, on top of the beautiful new Caliban profiles and Noctifers, and of course the Sphinx, and people having good tournament results with them, the Tiger Creatures. I find it interesting seeing Varuna and Shazvasti right at the top there, just because Actually, no, sorry. I was going to talk about Toha being up the top there as well. Shazvasti can sometimes counter Toha just because Fatality level 2 in that Link team can shred its way through the Symbiomates because you're critting way more often. So, interesting to see Toha up there. Then Nomads, and Nomads being a very popular faction, but also very flexible, and it's interesting to see that we've got Nomads as our 4th best rated faction, whereas Pano is right down to 19, the 2 opposing factions in Operation Ice Storm. But let's be real, Nomads have been given a jammer, Pano have as well. But Nomads, of course, have all the crazy koala jank and the hacking. They've still got a lot of aggressive attacking options. They've got heaps of really good cheerleaders. They're a bit more of a versatile faction, and it's easier to put together a very efficient list. Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise for me to see them that far apart. Another really interesting observation, which you guys might have spotted already with this survey, is that, hey, people seem to think that vanilla factions are good. There's been some forum threads over the years where people are like, what's better? Is it better to play sectorial or is it better to play vanilla? Well, according to you guys, we have Toha, Nomads, Combined Army, Hakislam, all in a bunch there in the top 6. It's only these 2 sort of extreme, freakish sectorials which have overtaken them. If it wasn't for the OP stuff we see in those 2 sectorials, then maybe we'd see the whole run of vanilla factions at the top. Then, of course, we've got Deshat and OSS, which, again, freakishly strong. Deshat Company, you've got access to McMurray, you've got the Rushi and the Link team, so to Tugan, you can make a massive, like, 18, 19 order list if you want to, tons of remotes. They are very, very optimized. OSS, of course, has that Dakini TACbot in Link team with assisted fire, which is one of the few ways to reliably crush a Kamau sniper. So OSS right up there, and I'm surprised they're not a little bit higher, but again, it's a very close poll. And then, of course, you got Ariadne here and Yujing down here, and only until you get 19 do you get Pano. So, of the vanilla factions, only Pano's in the bottom. Everything else is in basically the top third-ish. Yeah, top third, I think, is the way to put it. 12 out of 36. So, that was interesting as well. With these middling sort of factions, it's kind of hard to pick. I think Spiral Core was all over the place. We had a lot of people say they were top half, a lot of people say they were bottom half, and again, it's just about perception. It's about lack of experience as well. I don't think we've had time yet to have played a lot of games with Spiral Core and differentiate them from Toha and have a lot of people really understand what the limitations are. They have a very powerful ability to put down that Stratus Cloud or whatever it's called and shoot from the midfield at full burst. So that can make a big difference. Rama Task Force at number 15 compared to number 2 Shazvasti. I'm not surprised by that. With Shishkin being linkable in the same way that the Kaurija and Tarika, that's cool and all, but Shazvasti have all those other options as well, which are very, very strong, like the Sphinx, like the Calibans, like the Noctifers, whereas Rama really only have that one link team that's considered extremely, extremely strong. Although I did see somebody won a tournament with them not too long ago. Corregidor, Tunguska, and Bakunin are in a little group here, and unfortunately that's just because I think a lot of people don't know how to rate them. And in my list I put in the video description last time, like I said, that's the order they sort of appeared in. They were in a little bunch there because that's how they appear in Army 6. So people are going, right, I'm just going to copy-paste out Shazvasti. I know they're at the top, Drew's know they're at the bottom, and just made a few tweaks and then submit that to me by email. So I wouldn't really read much into the ranking here or the ordering of Corregidor, Tunguska, and Bakunin. Like most factions, they have their detractors as well as people who think that they're very, very strong. What other points was I really keen to make? Morats being quite low faring down here. I happen to feel that they're a bit stronger. Where have I put them? Morats. I've got Morats way up closer to the middle, and that's because I genuinely feel that right now the Kornak limited insertion link team, where everybody's immune to jammers because you're Morats, and you've got a good sort of 13 orders, well 14 actually, so you take 3 tactical winners HMGs plus Kornak Strategos, you've got a 14 order push out. So that kind of list is also very strong and can achieve a lot more than some of these other lists, other factions below it, I feel. But also just your standard Morat lists with maybe Kornak in a Haris team, or the Hungaries obviously in their fire team, with the Q drone and some of the new changes with Rodoc and Zerat hackers, that kind of thing. I feel that Morats are a bit better than what people think, so that's why I've got them in the middle. But hey, I can understand that a lot of you guys think that they are quite weak, just because there's a lot of annoying things about them, a lot of disappointing things about their options, shall we say. So the Sogarat's still pretty bad. Zerat's still, marker state not there for them. The Vanguards are still a bit overcosted, that kind of thing. So it's kind of tough. You compare that to, say, Onyx, which got Kernau to buff them, whereas Morats still have Tritak Anyat, who's okay, but she's not busted in the way that, say, Kernau is. And I feel like Onyx are up close here because of Kernau. And I agree with people, or the group really, that they're a little bit below OSS, because with OSS you're mixing in CSUs and Divas and you're able to go prone with your group and you can still have posthumans, whereas Onyx, it's a bit static, they're a bit too defensive, they're a bit slow, and they can be quite hard to hide their silhouettes. Invincible Army, you guys think are number 17. I think I've put them a little bit lower. No, it's about right. I think we got that pretty close. Invincible Army, I feel like I'm liking them less and less as time goes by. Just because their main gimmick, the thing that they do best, is that huge push out with NCO and tactical awareness in that big, bold link team. But any hidden deployment missile launcher is going to ruin your day. Even if you are up against hacking and you've got the high down your link team to kill it, it's still going to slow you down. They are really vulnerable against EM grenades if they end up out in the midfield. Jammers, Emirats, still going to affect them, that kind of thing. Whereas any other build with Invincible Army, it just struggles to get past that 12, 13, 14 order mark, which is not really very comfortable. So that's a shame. But because of that Taishan group, you're still able to deliver such a mean right hook that some of these other factions can't do. I mean, if you try and do something similar to Steel Phalanx, you've got Hector and the Myrmidons, and they're in need of a bit of an update. It's been a while since Steel Phalanx saw much of a change, and there's been a lot of power creep since then. Japanese Sectorial, number 25. What was it on the raw data? Let's find it. Number 24, so pretty close. Sadly, although these guys are a very popular faction, if you've watched my video breakdown of them recently, I do point out some serious flaws that they have to live up with. Ikari's right next to them. I would have thought Ikari would be a bit better than that. I've got Ikari probably up a bit higher. No, I don't. I've got them right down here, quite close to Japanese. But I've got them a few rungs higher on the ladder. The difference with Ikari is that you can put the Tanko in a link team of Kaisatsus, whereas even though those are Japanese units, Japanese can't even do that. And then with Ikari, you've got a lot of cheaper troopers to bulk out your whole list, and you can take the brawler sniper obviously in there as well. So yeah, they're pretty good, and you can still take a ninja. So there are a lot of the good things that you want to take out of Japanese Sectorial are still able to be cherry picked. Caledonians, quite low on the list. I did a video review of them recently, a breakdown, and again pointed out the main weaknesses, and I feel like you guys generally agree, or maybe they've been rated fairly low because of that video. I don't know. It could be that bias. Foreign Company, of course, I did say a bit about them earlier. I'm thinking of actually making a review video on them soon, just because some people out there like to try and win with factions that are perceived as weak. And they're also kind of classy and stylish as the luxury mercenary sort of group that you can take. So that could be kind of fun. So I might spend a bit more time analysing why. And then the French, they've lacked an update. Corvus Belli was putting their models out of production. You look at their link teams, and they can't do anything with wildcards that's anywhere near as flashy as Deshat and OSS and Shazvasti. The good thing about them, I guess, is they've got some chasseurs they can take advantage of, and they've got that Duroc guy, or whatever he's called. But other than that, they can't really cobble together a very strong list relative to a lot of these names above them. And Druze, of course. We all know that Druze are really lacking some quality options, and the kinds of lists you have to build with them include a lot of filler that you otherwise wouldn't really want to have to take. They can be quite slow, lack a bit of reach. So this has been fun. Main takeaways, people agree that Varuna, Shazvasti, Toha, that kind of thing are very, very strong in today's environment. Maybe O12 will change that once they come out. If Corvus Belli watches this video, I'm sure they'll have a whole lot of other data which they can use in terms of what factions win at tournaments and what factions people put into ITS and how that works. But this may be an interesting sort of overview about some of the reasoning. I don't think there are too many picks in here that people are going to look at and go, wow, I'm so totally surprised by that. Unless you are maybe playing in a small, isolated meta where you don't play in a lot of tournaments and your view of the game is generally shaped by one or two other people and their plays against you. I think mostly people are going to agree on this, especially the sort of the top 5-6, bottom 5-6, whereas in the middle, if your favorite faction's somewhere in the middle and you think that they're very powerful, then that might cause a bit of consternation. Let's just have a quick look at some of the smaller data points. So yeah, we've got Shock Army. Somebody's rated them like 3rd best. Neoterra, we've got somebody who's saying this is the without the outliers. If we go to the raw data, it's going to be even more. It's going to jump out at us even more. So Shock Army, we had 35. Pan-Oceania, again, somebody thought it was the 2nd best faction. Steel Phalanx, yep, 30 kind of thing. So that you'll always be able to find somebody within a group who's like, yeah, no, that faction's really strong, even better than like Deshat Company, OSS, Combined Army. We reckon it's Pano or it's Steel Phalanx or Neoterra, and that's fair. Gosh, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody who responded to this, especially the people who have, the wilder opinions, especially the people who think that this faction's really strong and really not, and they have a different view from the crowd. That made this really fun and interesting to look at. Hope you guys enjoyed this little look. Of course, the spreadsheet's there now, so if you want to play around with the data and manipulate it in your own ways and come up with your own sort of results, by all means. We might even do another faction poll like this 6 months down the track after O12 have come out. Next time, maybe we'll do it in a bit more of an automated way with a internet poll, just so that more people can respond to it. And yeah, for those of you who feel a bit reluctant to participate in this kind of thing, spend some time in Army 6, start brushing up, do a little bit of research, go and find out what kind of lists you can build with factions you're not very familiar with, and see whether you feel empowered by them, whether you feel like you'll be able to win more games with that faction compared to the ones you're familiar with, or whether these are factions that just don't have the same great options, or that you can't see the great options that you're used to. So really keen on your feedback from that. Anyway, tournament coming up this weekend. I'm going to be playing in it, and next week, watch my YouTube channel because there's going to be tons of bat reps from that ITS event coming up this weekend. So stay tuned for that, guys. We'll see you next time.